Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the Let's Get Gritty podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm super thrilled to be here with you guys this afternoon. I hope that you are just enjoying the season. We have so much going on. I think many of us are starting to shift our focus towards the holidays here in the States. And, you take a trip to Walmart, you see they already have Christmas trees up. So we haven't even thought about how we're going to cook a turkey, but we're already in the midst of Christmas at the same time. So with that said, we're going to go into some announcements with you. First things first, the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White. It will be featured on Spotify and all of my social media channels. My social media channels, for those that are just joining us for the first time, Facebook is Miss India White. Twitter is Indy Speak and Teach. LinkedIn is The India White. Instagram is Indy238. YouTube is India White 123, and TikTok is Dr. India White. Also, feel free to check out the website, www.india-white.com, for books, blogs, or to schedule me for an upcoming speaking event, coaching event, professional development, opportunities in your university, and beyond. I also wanted to remind you guys of some upcoming conferences. Thank you to all the FAMT leaders for the opportunity to speak to your amazing leaders across the state of Florida and beyond. At the FAMT conference yesterday. I am excited to also join you guys in South Carolina for the FCCTM conference. Thank you for the opportunity to be your keynote. I'm also excited to join all of you amazing leaders across the nation at the NABC conference in Atlanta next week. And then, of course, Making Math Moments, the virtual conference. So many amazing speakers will be there. We'll be sharing out this Sunday evening. So if you have time, please join us Sunday. I think my session's at like 4:30 Sunday evening, November 17th. So looking forward to talking about grit and some other great things with each of you on that platform as well. So with that said, let's continue. Also remember the Grassroots Workshops website that is available for you there. Spread the word, tell a friend, tell a teacher. And then, of course, the Grit Academy. Please join me so I can help you as you're trying to help students with online tutoring. With that said, I do want to talk a little bit about grit. As you know, I'm big on grit. Grit is all about great resilience and time. I do think it is a solution for many of us. However, I've noticed in this season, so many people have been very gritty, which is amazing. I mean, they are breaking records of doing so many different things. They've been just taking care of the future, making steps to make sure that they're, on top of things, and they're going on the go. But then it made me think, what if there's too much grit? Is there such a thing as too much grit? And why would I come on the show and talk about this? And the reason why, so I was reminded of a woman in my life who she's older now. She's got to be about 75 to 80 years old. And she told me how she was a young corporate leader doing amazing things. And all of a sudden she had a stroke because she just kept going like the Energizer Bunny. And this was years ago. She warned me. She just told me, she said, India, whatever you do, listen to your body, just know that your job will be there, with or without you. And she just really kind of helped me put things in proper perspective. And so as I've been doing this work in grit, it's a motivator, right? Grit is a trait where you push yourself beyond limits at times. It's all about resilience. It's all about time management. It's all about meeting goals, goal setting. It's great. And it builds up your self-efficacy. But can you go beyond? Yes, you can. And it's not always of the best interest. There has to be limits to grit. And so I say this because as we have this grit movement going on, and I'm just one of your grit chicks out here, as you're pushing for grit, please first off, make sure you understand what grit is versus what grit is not. And then understand how to incorporate grit in a way that has work-life balance so that you don't burn out and that students that you work with won't burn out, teachers that you work with won't burn out. And so before I get started on how we can balance levels of grit, I will say this. I will talk about what grit is not. Grit is not assigning 200 word problems in an Algebra 1 class and telling your students to have it finished by the end of the day. That's not grit. That is insane. I think that is some type of mental abuse and oppression, and it's way too much. To overload someone does not cultivate grit. That discourages them. That sets them up to fail. Instead, grit is giving someone a proper portion or a proper load as a teacher or whatever, and then being there to motivate them as they're working on a proper load, right? To get the task done in a certain amount in a proper amount of time. There's one thing to procrastinate and to know you had 20 problems due by the end of the week and you didn't touch anything, versus being given 20 problems and told to do them in 10 minutes. There's a difference between the types of pressure there. Procrastination is not good, right? Because you're wasting time. You could get a lot done so that you don't have that rush and that pressure. Oh my word, so much to do. But at the same time, it is not, I don't approve of any educator, principal, teacher, leader, whatever, giving insurmountable amounts of work in a short amount of time. That is ridiculous, because these things can lead to strokes, God forbid, brain aneurysms and other health conditions, high blood pressure, and things like that. And so I do want to just now talk about how to balance high levels of grit. And for those that are leaders and you're delegating tasks or delegating homework, whatever you're doing, please keep that in mind so that you don't abuse the term grit to think, oh, I have so much grit, I'm taking on 18 assignments at the same time. That's not grit. That's too much. It's overload. There is a difference between overload and grit. Grit, there is still some type of balance in the work you do. There's still balance in the portion of work that has been allotted to you. Overload, which I think is abusive, is intentionally giving a ridiculous amount of work. It's like cramming for the final exam in college. You're cramming an entire book over like 4 to 6 hours to pass an exam. That is overload. Well, if you feel that way, you've been given a task, whatever, or you're going to give a task, and you think that's neat to give 50, chapters to read or something like that, I would say reconsider. Please do not coin that to be grit, because it's not grit. And so with that said, I want to continue moving forward to talking about how we can balance high levels of grit. Now that we understand that grit, there is still a portion that is maintainable. It's doable. This is why there's self-efficacy. If grit is being done right, all of these measures feed off of each other: growth mindset, self-efficacy, resilience, time management. If grit is done right, it should flow, right? They should work cohesively together. If it's not done right, and there's like an overload on an assignment, or there's an overload on homework, whatever, the self-efficacy, it drops, boom, because people are like, I just can't do that. And time management out the window, because there's no way I can finish 200 problems in a day. See what I mean? So we have to be mindful of that and understand that when you do this in sync, they all of the elements of my grit framework should flow together. So with that said, I now want to talk about how can we then balance levels of grit and drive. So first things first, stick to a to-do list, right? Making sure that this to-do list is reasonable. If you have a to-do list and there's like 85 things to do for the day, that's not reasonable. You're definitely going to have to adjust, right? Allocate certain tasks to later throughout the week or the next week. Also, Don't rush. So many times, especially gritty rock stars, we feel like we'll have this drive going, things are going good, and so we want to rush. We'll rush. It's not a competition. It's not about being first or being what, like, we have to understand how to balance this thing and how to balance life. It's okay to say no. It's okay to push things, for later. 3, take moments to reflect. So at the end of your day, take a moment, or at the end of a task, take a moment and ask yourself, how was that? Was that really great? Was I able to really do this job with excellence? Like, ask yourself those tough questions so that you know where you stand and that you're proud of your work. 4, listen to your body. I've told the story before when I, was working in Hillsborough County, and I overworked myself, and I would not listen to my body, and I could not get up in the morning. I would just lay there paralyzed almost because it was just too much work. So we have to listen to our bodies. And then, of course, having an accountability partner. Who in your life? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a friend? Do you have a spouse? Do you have a loved one, a family member? Do you have a counselor? Do you have a therapist? Do you have a church member, minister, someone that can support you, that is really cheering you on as you're cultivating grit, being gritty and doing things, but still understanding how to balance grit so it's not too much grit. So those are my pointers to you guys as to how to do this so that you can remain gritty, and you can cultivate grit and having that great resilience in time, and maintaining success without losing it. So with that said, I now want to talk about some of these medical symptoms and whatnot, just so that we can be more proactive as we are leading. And this message is really for our principals, our teachers, those that are, leading in various organizations and whatnot, as to how we can make sure we're balancing grit on a day-to-day basis. So first thing I want to share with us is, I first want to share about what is resilience, because resilience really it's all about great resilience. So I want to talk about resilience. Here, this says understanding emotional resilience. So it says the ability to withstand adversity, rebound from setbacks, and maintain emotional well-being is a priceless skill, right? So then it's going to talk with us about these pillars here. What is emotional resilience? How to build resilience, emotional resilience training, right, for me, and so on and so forth. Emotional resilience. And why am I talking about emotional resilience? Because I think that as leaders, we're needing a lot of emotional resilience as you deal with different personalities, different stressors, different tasks, different demands. So here it says emotional resilience is a complex and valuable quality that empowers individuals to face life's challenges, setbacks, and adversities with grace and fortitude. At its core, it's the capacity to bounce back from difficult situations while maintaining emotional well-being. So rather than avoiding and suppressing those emotions, emotional resilience it's the art of acknowledging and processing them into a healthy and constructive manner. It acts as an inner anchor, and it keeps individuals steady amidst the unpredictable storms of life. We definitely need it, right? But we don't want to do it to the point of burnout. Okay? So then it's saying, how do you build it? First things first, self-awareness. This is great, right? So recognize your own emotions, understand the triggers, and how you basically acknowledging how you typically respond to stress and adversity. Okay. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of emotional resilience, and it helps you. It allows you to identify and manage your reason or your reactions effectively, right? So then you're going to cultivate a positive mindset. All of this is good, right? And I want us to understand this because we're trying to understand how to balance all this. We have to take all of these pillars and understand how to make them relevant, how to use them, but how to do it in a balanced way. So train your mind to focus on opportunities for growing and learning, even in challenging circumstances. This shift in mindset allows you to view adversity not as a threat, but as a potential catalyst for personal development. Next. So as you're being gritty, develop a develop a strong support system. So one of the cornerstones of emotional resilience is having a strong support system. Surrounding yourself with friends and families and mentors, right, that understand you is invaluable. Of course, understanding how to hone in on problem solving skills is good. Continue to break down issues into, smaller steps, working towards practical solutions, embracing adaptability, right? This is good. Prioritizing self-care. So this is the one I really wanted us to get to. Prioritizing self-care. Self-care plays a fundamental role in nurturing emotional resilience. Maintaining your physical and mental well-being is essential for emotional strength. Adequate sleep, a balanced diet, regular exercise, and relaxation are all vital components, right? That helps you with your overall resilience, which is excellent. And then it says seeking professional help, right? So certain professionals can help you. Because as you're doing that, that's what's really going to help you with making sure that you're remaining balanced, even as you're also building resilience and understanding resilience. So now that we understand a little bit of what resilience is and the different layers as how we can have great resilience in time, now we need to understand why we need to kind of chill out with it at times to balance it. Don't take it all the way off the table, but you need to understand how to balance this so you don't burn out and your students don't burn out. I'll never forget the times, when I was teaching, especially if you're doing like a math boot camp or something like that, and you're helping to build grit, through those boot camps. It was very interesting how I could read my kids. And that's another thing. You have to know yourself. You have to know your students. And so now I'm talking to teachers. I could read the students, and I can read when they were burned out. I can read when their eyes were glazed over or they're begging me like, Miss, this is we're at our wits' end here. We're at the brink of, like we need a break. We have to understand how to believe ourselves, believe others. And I'm going to say this too. Even if somebody is burning out, that doesn't mean you take opportunities from them or that you just cancel it all together, but you find ways to adjust and to adapt so that you can still utilize, your students' services or their talents and whatever without totally checking them out because they're human. And for downsides to resilience, this is published by the Resilience Institute. Awesome. It says resilience defined by the psychological ability to adapt and cope with stress and to bounce back, right, from negative occurrences. This trait has always been desirable. Many great philosophers have espoused its virtues with this famous that which does not kill us, right, makes us stronger kind of thing. Okay, and then look here. So this Zandashi says, I dream of never being called resilient again in my life. I'm exhausted by strength. I want to support. I want softness. I want ease. I want to be amongst kin. Not patted on the back for how well I take a hit or for how many. Oh my gosh, that's a very real feeling that this person is having. Because it's not always about being strong. Sometimes you do need that softness in life, especially as a lady. And so here it says, resilience, it can cause you to persist meaninglessly. So if you have too much of it. So they say here, the first case where extreme resilience can do damage is if you're trying to reach an unrealistic or otherwise unattainable goal. When we're told to go big or go home, or some version of that, but persisting with unachievable mission is less effective. And also if you don't have the support. So somebody can say go big or go home and they don't support you. Well, I mean, you have to accept that they don't support you and keep it moving, right? Here it says resilience can lead to people to push forward with a false hope and a waste of a huge amount of time, meaningless activities, right? And this is why I said you need to make sure you have a list in that you have goals that are realistic. Like remember I told you about the 200 problems in a day, that's just not gonna work. And so it says here, if past experiences indicate you can't achieve a certain goal, by the way you've gone about it so far, it's better to adjust your strategy. If not, you're just wasting time and energy. Excessive resilience tend to go hand in hand with overconfidence and groundless optimism, which might be a part of feeding an ego as well. We don't have time for that, right? We don't have time for narcissism. So here it says, sometimes it's more than toxic positivity. So if it's taken too far, positivity can make us ignore the reality and things that cause us grief, worry, or stress. We deny our feelings, trying to convince ourselves there is so much to be grateful for. This is very true. The pain and negativity can go unprocessed. Negativity denotes a level of discomfort someone can experience. Emotions are broadly defined as positive and negative, but that's generalizing, right? So she keeps going here. She's talking about the difference. Now listen to this. Toxic positivity versus resilience. So resilience is when you recognize an adverse situation and accept the negative feelings. Truly resilient people, they take time to look after themselves. This is exactly why I'm discussing this with you guys, okay? It says they're able to hold more than one perspective about worrying or a certain situation. So they're problem solvers. On the other hand, toxic positivity mandates that you act like nothing is wrong, right? This is a beautiful life. Nothing's wrong. There's no, there aren't any setbacks. Everything just flowing wonderful. And I'm just, flowing and walking through a bunch of lilies, and I'm just so excited about everything. That's a toxic positivity. It says you have to focus on the positive and block negative emotions, forcing yourself to be productive. This is a being thinly disguised as denial or avoidance. So, and that is very real. One thing about grit, and even when I push grit, it's like they said, you don't deny the reality of what's going on, but you provide solutions. And there are solutions in a growth mindset and all these things. But if somebody's parent just died or somebody's going through trauma or some kind of catastrophic event, that's not the time to show up with balloons and a band and say life is great, right? That's the time to adjust the strategy and to say, how can I help you build resilience, emotional resilience, while also taking care of yourself in this time? There's nothing wrong with having a down moment as long as you recognize that you're going to recycle that. You're going to come up with a plan to recycle that and move forward. If you're always happy-go-lucky, that does come off as having a toxic positivity. And that's definitely something we're not striving for. We're striving for a growth mindset, but that's not a toxic positivity to where you're looking the realities of life, different hardships, different, some people are dealing with different injustices, different griefs, different hardships. And you're looking at all of this and trying to figure out, how do I continue to overcome? So whenever you have resilience, you're able to overcome. Toxic positivity, it blocks off the issues and then it distracts you with joy and all this false hope and foolishness that's not solving the problem. Resilience will help you to find a way to find a solution, right? And this is the power of the GRIT framework, is because it helps with finding solutions so that you can overcome and remain productive. So it's great that they're talking about, toxic positivity versus resilience. I think we need to definitely understand that having grit is not the same as toxic positivity. So let's keep it moving with this. So unrealistic retrospection. Okay. People are stuck trying to achieve the old normal. Someone who's had a heart attack or severe back injury might push themselves to restore the health condition to how it was before the incident. They will find that it is very difficult to move forward in the situation. Then accepting the new normal will be even more challenging and frustrating than it needs to be. Even, it's okay to know that you're not always going to have normalcy absolutely the way it was. Like I remember when I had my children, it was told me when a woman has a child, she loses strength, right? Each time you have a child, you lose strength. And And then, of course, your body changes. You're not going to be the exact way. Now, some women are absolutely amazing. They're doing things and they're able to get close to what they were. But I mean, you had a baby. So it's okay to acknowledge you're not going to ever be the same person. Your body has now recognized you as a mom. So your body changes. Now, knowing that, it's imperative that we keep these things in mind as we're cultivating grit and building resilience throughout our days, to really acknowledge, yeah, there are going to be changes. And so let's keep going here. So it says some people, when someone is stuck on how their situation should be, they don't acknowledge the options available to them. That's a fixed mindset. And sometimes you have to accept your reality and come up with a plan to move forward. And that happens with the growth mindset. Oh, wow, look. So it says that here. Accepting reality lets people adapt their minds and bodies continuously and cope with adverse changes more easily. Yay. Okay, so that's what it's all about. Learning how to cope, overcome, and cope. Sometimes you overcome. Sometimes you cope for the moment and then you overcome. But you're building grit. You're building that resilience by accepting your reality, accepting the cards that have been given you, right? People that don't accept it, they do drastic measures. They take drastic measures into their own hands. They do crazy stuff, and it's not healthy. Now, look, it says people can use resilience dismissively. So parents can use it to dismiss their children's problem. A child's distress is uncomfortable to a parent, and the argument that children are resilient can conceal the problem in their eyes, leading to inaction when the child needs protection. It's very important, parents, that we have those conversations with our children, those one-on-one conversations, and that we believe our children, right? And that we fight for them because we are their defense. Okay? So as you see, it keeps going. It enables harmful tolerance of adversity whenever you have excessive resilience. So excessive resilience, it can make people too tolerant of negative events. You can lead to putting up with dead-end or boring jobs or bad bosses for a long time. Interesting. The U.S. study found 3 out of 4 employees identified their manager to be the worst part of their job. Some people can't handle power well. And this is important because people deal with, their life situations. But sometimes they're under bad leadership. A really insecure leader is someone that does not build up everyone on the team. It is someone that, and you can tell if somebody has, if they're under a great leader, because they either want to be like them or they will tell you stories of how that leader has changed your life. I go back to my old principal all the time, who he just changed my entire trajectory as to how I led as a teacher, as an administrator, because he was selfless, and he it wasn't about him. It was about the environment. It was about the school. He cared about every single one of us. He was intentional, and if we were hurting, he was hurting. That's a good leader. If the lowest among them is hurting, they feel like they are hurting and they have to do something about it. A good leader will stay up and won't be able to sleep at night because they're constantly worried about, how can I make things right for everyone on my team, everybody in my circle of influence, my organization, my school, whatever. That is a good leader. When you're trying to build resilience and you're trying to support, it's imperative that you are promoting a healthy environment where this whole toxic positivity is not. And some people under bad leadership will do this. They'll do this toxic positivity because they know they can't trust that leader, so they'll be fake, right? And things like that, like whether it's a principal, whatever, they'll be fake. But you can see it in their faces what the reality is. So I hope that as leaders are building grit and resilience in the organization, the school, whatever, that they can be mindful. And I hope that we can lead with our hearts and say, how am I helping everyone? How am I supporting everyone? How am I showing love? Because it's like when you see certain leader names or you see certain brands, whatever, those come with memories, and are they warm memories or are they memories, cold memories? Like, and so as a leader, it's imperative that we're doing what we can. So when people look at our, our brand and they look at what we represent, that there's a warmth and that it's not, anything that would be detrimental for those that, trust you and work with you. So look here. So enabling a harmful tolerance of adversity. So then it says here, around 2/3 of people said they would work for less money if they could have a different manager. So it says here, however, people don't seem to act on these impulses despite advent passive recruitment. It says job tenure tends to be stable over time. It could be a case of misguided resilience, right? At least for some people who are unhappy on their jobs. Okay, so let's keep going. So resilience, too much resilience can imply harsh judgment of yourself and others. We definitely can't judge people's resilience levels. That's like trying to judge, like, I want to say something about this. So it says one of the biggest myths of resilience is that there's something wrong with someone who can't adapt and adjust quickly. Again, something is wrong with someone that can't adapt or adjust quickly. This happens all the time in classrooms where people will say, oh, well, that student just can't get it as fast as Johnny, or, I don't know what's wrong with them, why they can't get it together. And it's like they haven't even scratched the surface of getting to know the other student and what they have going on, right? And I think even the little things like working out, dealing with, different tasks, writing a book, different things like that. People are different. People's learning styles are different. The way people process it is different. And so we have to also bring that element of empathy in the mix. And I think that's what really makes the difference of grit, is if you kind of have empathy holding all the pieces together because you care enough about that person that you want to know. Like, for instance, some people, let's talk about working out, since that's a thing many of us are familiar with. You go to the gym, you work out, you see someone that's like walking the treadmill. You see someone walking the track. You see someone lifting weights. You see someone going crazy on a machine, right? And they're just like in sync. They're one with the gym kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's easy to look at the person that is like one with the gym and then look at the person that's, walking the track and then think the person that's walking the track is just lazy. But what if they have a medical condition? What if their doctor said, I'm trying to help you recover, and what you have to do is you just have to walk, to get back to where you need to be? What if they were in a car crash and so they're trying to get everything back in? And so I think that before we do judge people on their grit levels and their resilience, we definitely have to keep these things in mind as well, because we are not all one. And culturally speaking, we're not all one. Linguistically speaking, even the way we're built, our bodies are not all one, right? So that's just like one simple example of when you're talking about building resilience. I think we really do need to put that piece of empathy in to make all these pieces work. And if you don't have empathy, that's another topic for another day. So that's we'll cover that another time. So with that said, I want to continue. I want to wrap this up, and then we're going to get you guys out of here. So resilience, yes, it can get in the way of leadership effectiveness. Excessive resilience can keep leaders from being effective as they ultimately can. A lack of self-understanding can harm their teams and their whole organization, because you're stressing people out and they're burning out, right? It says they use aggressive mechanisms to cope in order to protect themselves from emotional harm, which is not good, right? And then it talks about all of these different things. There's a talentless leader, there's a Resilience Institute perspective, and then they talk about burnout, which that's what happens when you have excessive resilience and no empathy. So it says burnout is typically understood for a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion that results from prolonged stress or frustration. It is typically attributed to a combination of factors, including overwhelming workloads. There you go. Lack of control or autonomy, right? Feeling like you're being choked. And then a lack of support. My goodness. Woo! That's tough. I'm going to leave that there for a minute. I think we need to soak this in. So many people talk about being rock stars and being an awesome boss and, being so great. But I really want us to take a moment and think about this. This is a lot. Look at those three. It says an overwhelming workload, lack of control or autonomy, and a lack of support or recognition. Wow. And, this causes a downward spiral, and it's a high stress environment. It's a toxic environment, and it causes issues in healthcare, social work, and all these things. Wow. We must be careful as we are doing this work and being resilient that we are not the cause of what we were talking about earlier. So how do you do this? Find your purpose. That's how you overcome these things. So it says, do you feel the only reason you're going to work is to get a paycheck at the end of the week or month? Is that why you chose your profession? If so, then you need to rediscover your purpose. Then take control. Look for more ways to be autonomous at work. Getting more control over projects, tasks, responsibilities, or deadlines. Do not die for your job. Again, do not die for your job. Next, take care of your health, eating a healthy, balanced diet, exercising regularly. This is important, setting boundaries, right? And also taking breaks, practicing self-care, and seeking support, changing others' expectations towards you. I mean, this is amazing. All of these great things. I'm going to go back to the title of this article so you guys can look at this and maybe talk about it with your teams. Practicing self-care, seeking support, changing others' expectations. This is excellent. So again, this was titled, because I like to give people credit to where credit is due. This is by the Resilience Institute. Are there downsides to resilience? They were the ones that wrote this. So with that said, that was pretty powerful. And I'm going to now just kind of wrap up the show here. Thank you so much for joining me on the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White. It's really been a blast talking about these things with you guys. A couple of things to remind you of. I will see you guys at some of these events. South Carolina coming up, and NABC conference and Making Math Moments all around the corner. Please check out the Grit Mini Workshop whenever you get a chance at the Grassroots Workshops website. Check us out at the Grit Academy if you're needing tutoring for your student. Don't forget to check out social media. Those are my handles there. Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is the India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. Also, check out the website, www.india-white.com, for books, blogs, or to schedule me for an event. And so with that said, guys, I'm so thankful that you were able to join me today on the Let's Get Gritty podcast. And I'll see many of you at upcoming events. Until next time, stay gritty. See ya.